Hello and welcome to day 11 of Unsourced Wald's Christmas Carol-A-Thon. We've gone through a lot of weird adaptations this week. We've done demonic dogs, time travel, dancing. So you'd think the bar would be ready set when it comes to weird shifts and changes to A Christmas Carol. We're going to test that today because we're going to be talking about the British TV special adaptation of A Christmas Carol starring Ross Kemp. Now, I'll freely say that I don't know much about the background of this movie, nor really its stars. This might be a little short, unfortunately, but I have heard that this is a bit of a hometown favorite and was rebroadcast every year for quite some time. Hell, it might even still be getting rebroadcast. But that it has unfortunately also never had a full physical release, so I will have to be using a bootleg. But let's just jump in. This is another modern day retelling of the story, this time recasting the narrative around an Eddie Scrooge, a loan shark on a London council estate that is due to be visited by three ghosts to learn to not be so callous and ruthless and cruel, and to learn the true meaning of Christmas. You know, the standard stuff, but also it's Groundhog Day. And it is actually quite entertaining. I think of the made for TV adaptations of this story that we've seen, this is definitely one of the ones that looks the most like that. It has this more sparsely lit and framed style that hallmarked miniseries and TV productions of the early 2000s, just shy of a soap opera look, which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, we talked about cartoon dogs with inconsistent lip syncing, so the level of quality really isn't that different in terms of medium. And the film does have a few interesting things about it that made me actually appreciate the thought that went behind the script and the storytelling. First off, that Groundhog Day thing, it's actually a really inventive way of integrating something from the book that you don't really see that often. In the original novel, the ghosts visit Scrooge over three consecutive nights, which is why Scrooge is shocked at the end when he realizes it's only still Christmas. Most adaptations change this into one big marathon run on a single night, or like in Scrooge, have it be the nights leading up to Christmas. While this kinda splits the difference, and that's really fun and creative. It also reminds me a little bit of Last Train at Christmas, as this gives Eddie Scrooge the chance to try and change things, which is nice to see explored a little. The next change that I thought was pretty nifty was that the Ghost Christmas are, well, actually ghosts from Eddie's life that he's being haunted by. His emotionally distant and abusive father is the Ghost Christmas past. Jacob Marley appears twice, shockingly, to play his standard role as, warning Scrooge, and also the Ghost Christmas present, which is, I think, really smart. And there's also this little kid playing Ghost Christmas future in a very obvious, blunt, and telegraphed twist, but it's still nice to see, and I do think it's still creativity and thought going behind that. But the biggest change of all is that nephew Fred is turned from Fred to Dave. I mean, is Dave a considerably more modern name? I mean, I get going from Ebenezer to Eddie, but I wonder what made Fred a no-go. And he doesn't even hold a Christmas party this time. Maybe that's the difference. All kidding aside, I was surprised at how much I did enjoy this one. The performance by Kemp himself as Scrooge is a highlight. He's definitely not your average Scrooge, much more of a Bill Murray Scrooge type, leaning more into a cool and sarcastic, smug persona, obviously a little more gangsterish, quipping off dry and sardonic one-liners over the place. Instead of being cold or miserly, he's more of an unrepentant douchebag. And the more stripped down nature and scale of this setting really helps keep things, I think, in balance with that. Now, the movie does move at a breakneck pace at times, really relying on your previous familiarity of this material to bridge the gaps of why some scenes are important to the overall themes and narrative, really sort of skipping along, which I think sometimes butts against the larger and more eccentric changes. Like I said, making about a loan shark, which I think works, but also you have Bob Cratchit just being his calculator, and stuff like the siblings of Need and Want are just being two homeless teens, or the fact that Scrooge's romance plot was just somewhat of a bad breakup. I think that those aspects, while still being less grand and imposing feeling than what the original and other adaptations have done, give it a relatably grounded charm, but also it's working overtime to make these things seem more important than they usually would be if this was like a more consistent retelling. Like, I enjoy the idea that maybe A Christmas Carol doesn't have to be something that's always about these incredibly powerful and influential titans of the industry, and that maybe it can just be about a jerk who is harming the lives of those around them. And I think that's a really great and engaging message. I wasn't expecting to be that immersed and invested in this story. But some of these things just lack a lot of impact because they don't have that sense of grandiosity or the ability to be as emotionally wellspringing as other films are. But overall, even despite some silly alterations, I think it's a lot of good fun, and there's a good sense of humor about it, and there's a lot of heart there. And while it might be dated as hell with references to Britney Spears and other pop cultural factoids of the early 2000s, just thrown about, like I said, very quippy, very one-linery heavy, I do believe that there is a thin line between dated and timeless. Aren't all these period pieces anyway? What is the difference in the end? I feel like if you were one of those who grew up watching this and were one of the people who tuned in every year for every broadcast, then yeah, I have to agree. I see what you see in this. It's got a lot of emotion, a lot of great performances, and it's just a nice novelty. And I think that's something to be proud of. Like, not all these need to be like really lavish, really sort of overly produced things, which we'll see next time. Sometimes a nice, humble retelling that gets the basic foundations right is all you really need. Overall, 8 out of 10. I really enjoy this. It's on YouTube. You can watch it in 720p ish quality, and it's well worth it. It's not too long, and like I said, it moves at a very quick pace. So it's not something you're gonna get too bored with immediately. Anyway, let me know what you think below. Is it something that you want to watch? Have you seen it before? And what do you think about it? And just leave a like, comment, subscribe, and see you again next time for the last day of the Unsourced Christmas Carol-A-Thon.